Hello dear friends, once again it's hearty welcome in this new online lecture. Dear friends, all of you are known, we have already started the study of second division of human nervous system, that is peripheral nervous system. I have already told you that peripheral nervous system, it connects the different body organs with the CNS, that is brain and spinal cord. And the peripheral nervous system, it mainly include cranial nerves and spinal nerves. In our previous lecture, already we have completed the study of cranial nerves, and therefore in this lecture we people have to learn about the second component of peripheral nervous system, that is spinal nerves. आपण पेरिफेरल नर्वस सिस्टीमचा अभ्यास करतोय. पेरिफेरल नर्वस सिस्टीम मध्ये प्रामुख्याने क्रॅनियल नर्व्स आणि स्पाइनल नर्व्स यांचा समावेश होतो. And we know that the cranial nerves means the nerves which either arise from the brain or join to the brain. ज्या नर्व्स ब्रेन पासून उगम पावतात किंवा ब्रेनला जॉइन होतात त्यांना क्रॅनियल नर्व्स असं म्हणतात. And we have studied all the details of that cranial nerves in previous lecture. या लेक्चर मध्ये आपल्याला स्पाइनल नर्व्सचा अभ्यास करायचा आहे. Actually name itself indicate what does it mean spinal nerves. Very simple. The nerves which arise from spinal cord. Those nerves which arise from spinal cord are known as spinal nerves. ज्या nerves spinal cord पासून उगम पावतात त्यांना स्पाइनल नर्व्स असं म्हणतात. बेसिकली इन ह्यूमन बीइंग देयर आर प्रेझन्स ऑफ 31 पेअर्स ऑफ स्पाइनल नर्व्स. इन ह्यूमन बीइंग देयर आर प्रेझन्स ऑफ 31 पेअर्स ऑफ स्पाइनल नर्व्स. ह्यूमन बीइंग मध्ये एकूण स्पाइनल नर्व्सच्या 31 पेअर्स आहेत. अँड these 31 pairs of spinal nerves are classified into different types. Here I am going to mention the classification or different types of spinal nerves. Let me explain you. Here in this diagram, please look at this diagram. In this diagram, I have shown this spinal cord with the help of yellow chalk. You know that the spinal cord, it passes through the cavity of vertebral column, that is neural canal, and also we know the main part of spinal cord ends at the level of first or second lumbar vertebra. That region is known as conus medullaris. आपण शिकलो आहोत की स्पाइनल कॉर्ड हा वर्टिब्रल कॉलम मधून गेलेला असतो आणि स्पाइनल कॉर्डचा मुख्य भाग सर्वसाधारणपणे पहिल्या किंवा दुसऱ्या लंबार व्हर्टिब्राच्या लेवलला संपतो. ज्या ठिकाणी स्पाइनल कॉर्डचा मेन पार्ट संपतो त्या भागाला कोनस मेडुलॅरिस असं म्हणतात. अँड द पोस्टेरियर व्हेरी थिन नॉन नर्वस एक्सटेन्शन, नॉन नर्वस पार्ट ऑफ द स्पाइनल कॉर्ड इज नोन ॲज फायलम टर्मिनेल. So here I have shown the spinal cord initially, and here I have shown the vertebrae, vertebral column. You know that vertebral column, it is made up of many ring-shaped bones, that is vertebrae. Here I have shown with the help of white chalk the vertebrae, such as the first 7 vertebrae known as cervical vertebrae. या ठिकाणी मी पहिले 7 सर्वायकल वर्टिब्रे दाखवलेले, ज्या C1 to C7 अशा प्रकारे मी मेन्शन केलेले आहे. त्याच्यानंतर नेक्स्ट 12 vertebrae are known as thoracic. Here I have mentioned as T1, T2 up to T12. Then the next 5 vertebrae here I have shown, that is L1 to L5, that is lumbar vertebrae, and then sacrum, and finally it comes the coccyx. Now I said that the spinal nerves in human being, मानवामध्ये स्पाइनल नर्व्स एकूण 31 जोड्या आहेत, 31 पेअर्स आहेत. Is that clear? And that 31 pairs of spinal nerves are classified into 5 groups. such as cervical spinal nerves. Cervical spinal nerves. The initial 8 pairs of spinal nerves are known as cervical. In this diagram, with the help of red color, I have shown the cervical spinal nerves. You can count here C1, that is first cervical nerve, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7 and 8. Actually, cervical, this word stands for the neck. So, the nerves, spinal nerves, which arises from the part of spinal cord passing through the neck region. Actually, you must know that the first cervical spinal nerve, it arises from the medulla oblongata, and remaining 7 actually arises from the spinal cord. Now, next 12 pairs of spinal nerves are known as thoracic. Cervical 8 pairs नंतर पुढच्या ज्या 12 जोड्या स्पायनल नर्व्हच्या आहेत त्यांना म्हटलं जातं thoracic spinal nerves. Once again, please look at this diagram. परत एकदा आपण या ठिकाणी डायग्राम मध्ये बघूया. Look, with the help of here violet color, I have shown the thoracic spinal nerves. That is, first thoracic spinal nerve, second thoracic spinal nerve. In this manner, here is a 12th thoracic spinal nerve. So, there are 12 thoracic spinal nerves. Next, that is lumbar spinal nerves. The next 5 pairs of spinal nerves are called as lumbar. Look at the diagram. In this diagram, with the help of yellow chalk, I have shown these 5 pairs of lumbar spinal nerves. Lumbar spinal nerve, first, second, third, fourth and fifth. After lumbar spinal nerves, the next 5 pairs of nerves are known as sacral spinal nerves. Next 5 pairs of nerves are called sacral spinal nerves. Here, with the help of blue chalk, I have shown these sacral spinal nerves. And the last one pair of the spinal nerve is known as coccygeal spinal nerve. Single pair. Coccygeal spinal nerve. In this manner, the 31 pairs of spinal nerves are classified into 5 types, such as initial 8 pairs cervical, next 12 pairs thoracic, next 5 pairs lumbar, next 5 pairs sacral, and last single pair of spinal nerves as coccygeal. On the basis of these different types, the spinal formula can be written. Spinal formula, it represents the type and number of different spinal nerves, such as C8, T12, L5, S5 and CO1. Here C stands for cervical, that is 8 pairs, T stands for thoracic, 12 pairs, L stands for lumbar, that is 5 pairs, S stands for sacral, that is 5 pairs, and last one, that is coccygeal, single pair, 1 pair. One more thing I want to tell you, that we have already studied the last 10 to 11 pairs of spinal nerves which arises from the hind part of the spinal cord are very close to each other, and these last 10 to 11 pairs of spinal nerves along with the filum terminale, it appears just like a horse's tail, and that's why it is known as Cauda equina. Now we people have to study about the formation of spinal nerve. Let us talk about it. Formation of spinal nerve. We know that all spinal nerves are mixed in nature. It means each spinal nerve contains both sensory as well as motor nerve fibers approximately in equal number, and spinal nerves consist of mostly the medullated or myelinated nerve fibers. Try to understand. या ठिकाणी सगळ्या स्पायनल नर्व्हचं नेचर हे मिक्स्ड आहे. याचा अर्थ स्पायनल नर्व्स मध्ये दोन्ही प्रकारचे म्हणजे सेन्सरी नर्व फायबर तसंच मोटार नर्व फायबर्स आहेत. इट हॅज ॲबिलिटी टू कंडक्ट इम्पल्सेस टू अँड फ्रो द स्पायनल कॉर्ड. आणि हे जे काही नर्व फायबर्स आहेत हे मेडुलेटेड किंवा मायलिनेटेड नर्व फायबर्स आहेत. नाउ as the spinal nerves are mixed in nature, they have dual origin or double origin. What does it mean? Let me tell you. I said that all spinal nerves have dual or double origin. It means the spinal nerves are formed by the union of two different structures. स्पायनल नर्व्स या दोन वेगवेगळ्या स्ट्रक्चर्सच्या एकत्रीकरणाने तयार झालेले असतात. such as the dorsal root and ventral root. Listen, the spinal nerves are formed by the union, by the fusion of two structures such as dorsal root and ventral root. What does it mean? Let me explain you by drawing a suitable diagram. Consider, here is supposed to be the TS of spinal cord. For our understanding, we have already seen that in transverse section spinal cord appears somewhat oval. It has a dorsal fissure, ventral fissure, may be known as the posterior fissure and anterior fissure. It encloses a cavity, that is central canal, and this central canal is surrounded by gray matter. Let me show. Central canal bhuti somewhat H or butterfly shaped gray matter is present, and we know that being H shaped, this gray matter shows different projections such as the dorsal horns, lateral horns and ventral horns. Now I am going to show the structure which represent the formation of spinal nerve. Please look. Here this dorsal horn, it extends in the form of dorsal root. Let me explain you. Here is supposed to be the dorsal root, and the ventral horn, it extends out as ventral root. Now please look at the diagram. Consider, here is the spinal nerve. या ठिकाणी आपण कल्पना करूया की ही स्पायनल नर्व आहे. This is a spinal nerve, and I told you that spinal nerves are mixed in nature. Means it contains both sensory nerve fiber as well as motor nerve fiber. या ठिकाणी स्पायनल नर्व्स या मिक्स्ड आहेत आणि म्हणून त्यांच्यामध्ये सेन्सरी नर्व फायबर पण आहे आणि मोटार नर्व फायबर पण आहे. The sensory nerve fiber, it enters into the spinal cord in the form of dorsal root. Consider, here is a sensory nerve fiber. This sensory nerve fiber enters into the spinal cord as dorsal root, while the motor nerve fiber, it emerges out of the spinal cord in the form of ventral root. Means you must know this structure, it represents the dorsal root, or it may be known as posterior root. Dorsal root or posterior root. And this structure represents ventral root, or may be known as anterior root. Anterior root. I said that the sensory nerve fiber enters into the spinal cord as dorsal root, and the motor nerve fiber, let me label, this is motor nerve fiber, it emerges out as ventral root, and dorsal root and ventral root fuse together to form here the spinal nerve. It means the spinal nerve contains sensory as well as motor nerve fiber. That's why the spinal nerves are mixed in nature. Actually, the dorsal root, it shows a solemn structure just near the spinal cord, but outside the spinal cord. It is known as dorsal root ganglion. Dorsal root ganglion, and it contains the cytons or cell bodies of sensory nerve fibers or sensory neuron. Better to say sensory neuron. या ठिकाणी डॉर्सल रूट गॅंग्लियॉन मध्ये सेन्सरी न्यूरॉनच्या सेल बॉडीज किंवा सायटॉन्स या प्रेझेंट असतात. Such type of dorsal root ganglion which is present here on the way of dorsal root is not present here on the ventral root. Now, the dorsal root and ventral root unite together within the vertebral column, within the cavity of vertebral column, that is neural canal, to form the spinal nerve. And immediately after its formation, the spinal nerve emerges out of the vertebral column. या ठिकाणी स्पायनल नर्व तयार झाल्यानंतर ती वर्टिब्रल कॉलमच्या बाहेर येते थ्रू इंटरवर्टिब्रल फोरामेन. थ्रू intervertebral foramen. Please try to understand. I said that the dorsal root and ventral root fuse together within the cavity of vertebral column to form the spinal nerve. म्हणजे प्रत्यक्ष स्पायनल नर्व ही वर्टिब्रल कॉलमच्या आतमध्ये तयार होते. Then the spinal nerve comes out of the vertebral column through intervertebral foramen. It means these are small openings present in between two successive vertebrae. दोन मणक्यांच्या मध्ये असणारे जे लहान लहान ओपनिंग्स आहेत त्यांना म्हटलं जातं इंटरवर्टिब्रल फोरामेन. या ठिकाणी आपण आकृतीमध्ये बघू शकता. Here both sides I have shown these small openings. They represent the intervertebral foramen through which the spinal nerve emerge out of the vertebral column. As soon as the spinal nerves emerge out of the vertebral column, each spinal nerve divides into three branches. या ठिकाणी स्पायनल नर्व वर्टिब्रल कॉलमच्या बाहेर आल्यानंतर प्रत्येक स्पायनल नर्वचे तीन प्रमुख भाग होतात. Such as, let me show. Such as the dorsal branch is called as ramus dorsalis. Ramus dorsalis. It may be called as the dorsal ramus or posterior ramus. And this branch is supplied to the skin and muscles of back of head, neck and trunk. म्हणजे पाठीकडच्या बाजूला असलेली स्किन आणि मसल्स यांना ही डॉर्सल ब्रांच ही इनर्वेट झालेली असते. सेकंड ब्रांच इज नोन ॲज ramus ventralis. Ramus ventralis. It may be known as the ventral ramus or may be known as the anterior ramus, and it is supplied to the skin and muscles of ventral side of the trunk. Okay, while third branch is known as meningeal ramus. Ramus stands for the branch. It is a very short branch and it innervates the meninges, outer protective covering of the spinal cord. But in addition to these three branches of spinal nerve, the spinal nerves from first thoracic up to the third lumbar spinal nerve show one additional branch. Try to understand. I said that except these three branches of the spinal nerve, the spinal nerves from first thoracic, याचा अर्थ पहिली thoracic spinal nerve up to the third lumbar spinal nerves show one more additional branch. It is known as the visceral or autonomic or ramus communicans. Listen, या ठिकाणी आणखीन एक additional branch या T1 स्पायनल नर्व पासून L3 स्पायनल नर्व पर्यंत असते, जिला म्हटलं जातं visceral ramus or may be known as autonomic ramus or may be known as ramus communicans, and it is connected to the sympathetic ganglia. Now what is sympathetic ganglia? That we shall study later on while studying the autonomic nervous system, while studying the sympathetic nervous system. Anyway, so here we have studied about the formation of spinal nerve. Now here ends this topic, spinal nerve. So let us stop here today. Thank you and bye.